Hey folks, what's going on? It's me, Andrew Westmoreland, back again with another stream. So, we are going to be talking about the Azov Battalion, and honestly, this is one of those videos that is gonna be. Some people can't handle the truth. Some people don't want to hear the truth. Um, Oftentimes, the truth is suppressed and hidden away from you. So I hope that this shines a little light on what the Azov Battalion is. Okay? The first things first here, I gotta get into the bare bone basics on what they are. And this is, I'm going to use official sources, right? Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia obviously is not the best source, but if Wikipedia is calling them neo-Nazis, I think we can see where there is a major rift in the narrative. Okay, it's not deniable. Okay, even interviews with their own people, their own leadership, their own commanders. There's like, yeah, there's some neo Nazis here, but don't worry about it. So I'm not going to pretend like I can read Ukrainian or Russian or anything like that. We're just going to do the best we can, okay? So the Azov Special Operations Detachment, also known as Azov Regiment or Azov Battalion, they were formed in 2014, and they are a neo-Nazi unit of the National Guard of Ukraine, based in Mariupol. Okay, and they're in the coastal region of the Sea of Azov. Okay, and Azov formed as a volunteer paramilitary militia in May of 2014. It has since been fighting Russian forces in the Donbass War. Okay, and currently it is now actively fighting one of the main fighting forces in the Russo-Ukrainian War. Okay. Now, it says it was initially operated as a volunteer police company until it was formally incorporated in the National Guard. So they've been around for years now, okay? So you also need to understand this, that the battalion grew controversy over allegations of torture and war crimes, as well as associated with the neo-Nazi ideology. Azov uses controversial symbols, including the Wolf's Angel insignia, which is used by Nazi SS divisions. Now, in March of 2015, I can't even say your name, so, Andriy Dyashenko, I'm assuming that's somewhat close to that. Spokesperson for the Azov Brigade told USA Today that 10 to 20% of the group's members are Nazis. Okay? An even more disturbing part of this is that the United States, military, there's also Canada, was also directly giving funding, arms, and training to Azov Battalion back in 2014 and 2015. It was passed by Congress, and then it was overturned, and then I think it came back, and I'm not entirely sure where we are now as far as America's involvement with Azov Battalion, but they have remained almost entirely silent on Azov Battalion, and there are a couple of I'd say, prominent members of Congress who are actively supporting Ukraine, and completely, obviously, they're aware of this, and they're just kind of ignoring it like it's not even a thing at all. And I believe these are Democrats as well as Republicans, so it's a bipartisan sort of thing to just auto support Ukraine and anything that Ukrainians are doing, and not giving any criticism where criticism is due. And make no mistake about this. This video isn't to only harp on this one aspect of the war. Obviously, what Russia is doing is incredibly disturbing. It is evil. They are doing war crimes. They are killing civilians, and it is it's hell. It's war. But we can't ignore what Azov Battalion is, and that they are officially sponsored by the Ukrainian government. So they're claiming that it's only like 2,500. Why can I not speak? 2,500 members, but it says it's 900 members in 2022. I don't believe it, because it's okay. You have 2,900 to 2,500 people fighting, Azov, but all these different videos that you can find online on YouTube and on mainstream media, you see these rallies and gatherings of Ukrainian citizens, supporting Azov in the thousands, if not tens of thousands, in the streets. So to make it seem like, oh, it's not a big deal, they're just a small little fringe, but don't even worry about them. They're not an issue or a threat or anything like that. Fiery Waco says, Democrats have been calling half of our entire country Nazis for years, which is another aspect of this that we have to talk about. Why have we been having, it's been a major left-wing talking point that Nazis are everywhere, especially in America, that there's a Nazi behind every corner, hiding in the shadows. But now, all of a sudden, when we have actual neo-Nazis in a military capacity, we're not talking, crackhead, meth addict, neo-Nazis here in America who, all they do is they have little rallies and talk shit and, give the Roman salute. We're talking about military armed fascists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis fighting in a military capacity in a war against Russia. Again, it's not to say that Russia is innocent or anything like that. It's to highlight the absurdity of what has been happening here in America. But now all of a sudden, Azov Battalion, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't look over here. So let me just tell you how insane this is, right? You, as an American citizen, will get banned off social media for having average conservative or Republican views. You'll get banned off of YouTube. You'll get banned off of Twitter, Facebook, all of these things for just having regular right-wing views. You don't even have to be right-wing. You could be a moderate or a centrist who are just against the left-wing and the far-left talking points, and you'll get banned. But for some reason on YouTube, these people are allowed a presence. Azov has a significantly large YouTube channel with almost 100,000 subscribers. And they're showing military operations and all that, and they're showing their propaganda, and they're doing all of this stuff. They're showing their war. And I don't know if, let me see if I can, I'm not really trying to play their videos, to be completely honest. But they had like basically, I allude, or I call it basically like a Klan rally. Let me see if I have any playlists that I could look at. It might be this one. Where'd it go? Let's see if I can play this. Yeah. I'm just going to like click through it. They're basically having what I would call a Klan rally. It's This is like what I've been trying to tell people, and they're not hearing me. They think I'm lying, they think I'm making this up. They think, "Oh, if the news isn't talking about it, it's not real." And I'm like, "Dude, they're on YouTube." And they're basically have this Klan rally. I mean, let me be very clear about this. It's, the tiki torches, right? Remember the whole tiki torch thing in Charlottesville, Virginia? When we had our far right white nationalist people doing their thing, we had the whole tiki torch rally. They're doing that here in Ukraine, and they have their torches. They're doing chants and salutes, and now they're not doing the Roman salute. They do like this chest thing. Their salute is like this. I don't know what's that supposed to signify or what that means. Let me see if I can get. Yeah, they're shooting guns in the air. There was another one that was like in a field, and it was like I'm trying to remember. Maybe I could pull it up from one of my posts I put in something else. It'll be on my channel in the community tab. There we go. Alright, I got it. Copy. Let's see if I can just post this straight in here and it'll still... Yeah, okay. So you're seeing what I'm seeing. Let me just click through it. They have their... I'm just like, dude, look at this. It's basically a Nazi flag because it's a turn sideways, the wolf angel. It's basically a lightning bolt, or it could be considered a lightning bolt. It's a lot of it is like Nordic runes. I'm trying to see, because I don't really want to play this. I just want to click through it. Yeah, and they got their shields and stuff in it. They're having like a religious ceremony, and it's got like Viking. I call it like, if you were going to call it like a Nazi clan rally, Nazi Viking clan rally. And they have, let me see if we could find there's like 3 swords, 3 Viking swords in the backgrounds in one of these shots. Yeah, they're doing their, doing their chest salutes. Wait, hold on. Okay, so this is a really up-close shot. You can see their Wolf Angel symbol, and they have the black sun in the background, which is a Nazi symbol. Oh, here you go, yeah. Okay, so they're doing some weird hybrid thing where they're like neo-pagans or something. I don't know. The point is, this is on YouTube. This is their YouTube channel, Azov Media. Okay? They're allowed a social media presence, known neo-Nazis, but anyone else who has like a cursory, average, right-wing or conservative what do you call it? A viewpoint. They're just neo-Nazis. I mean, they get banned and removed from social media. as an American citizen on American platforms that are, highly politicized. You have politicians and whatnot on it. You have government. The only way to contact a lot of these different agencies or departments or whatever is directly on their social media. I also want to show, this is Azov's website. I mean, and it just shows this stuff. So it's azov.org.ua, which is Ukraine. This is almost entirely in Ukrainian, so it's kind of hard to... I mean, there's a donate page. This looks like, I don't want to say it's Bitcoin, but there might be a Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin is down here. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Binance Coin. You could PayPal them. You could PayPal neo-Nazis, but if you are a regular, average, run-of-the-mill conservative, like, talking head, a pundit in America, you get banned off of PayPal. But they have neo-Nazis in Ukraine working in the military. You're allowed to have a PayPal in there. This is... This is what I've been trying to tell people, Brandon. People do not understand what's happening here. There are Jews from, like, I believe it was the ADL or whatever those, there's ADL and another one. I think it was a Jew from the ADL, and I have to mention that he's a Jew because that's super important. He's just kind of like, yeah, it's not really a big deal, and it's just like, but here in America, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal here in America if we have, anyone who's even remotely white nationalist or racist or neo-Nazi adjacent, whatever, they come after you with the full force of their organization and institutional power, but they're not even remotely concerned that they are actual neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Will they get the YouTube play button? I'm just like, come on, man. Like, this doesn't even make any sense. So, I want to see, I probably should pull up their symbols on the, here we go. I don't know why I didn't scroll through this the first time, but just so people don't, people think I'm just lying and making this up, or these are Putin talking points. These are Russian talking points. Like, even Wikipedia acknowledges that they're far right neo-Nazis. It's right here. Their ideology is neo-Nazis. This is their patch on the right here, Azov. In the middle, in the foreground in white is the black sun, which is let me pull up the black sun. You can see that right here in the little pop-up. Black sun is a neo-Nazi, or is a Nazi symbol, type of a sun wheel employed by Nazi Germany and later by neo-Nazis. Okay? And it has some strains of Satanism, which, okay. I can't really speak on that, but I know that for a fact that's a Nazi symbol. Okay? The wolf angel, let's see, this will pop up. Okay. Point is, these are neo-Nazi symbols, and again, these are official patches. That's their official emblem, their official patch they wear in their uniforms. And we are told that, it's only 20%. Don't worry about it. My biggest concern here is what's going to happen after this war with Russia, right? Ukraine's gonna lose if things remain completely the same, right? There's no international involvement like with actual troops. I would already say that yes, they're already doing that. You already have troops, foreign troops in Ukraine. We're just pretending like, oh, they're civilians who are fighting in the foreign legion. It's like, yeah, okay, right. And how many of these guys are military trained who went over there, right? They may have retired from their official nation's military, but they have military training from the last decade, so they're still good fighting men and fighting age. Okay. At what point do you say that it's just foreign nations are just actively in a conflict? Like I understand you can't really stop everybody from doing a thing, but come on, guys. So again, assuming that nothing really changes and it's just maintained current status quo, Ukraine will lose, and that's just should be obvious to anyone. Okay, again, I keep bringing this stuff up. The best comparison for an American would be like is if America invaded Canada, Canada would fall. There is no way in hell that you're going to convince me that Canada would win in a war against America in 2022. It's not going to happen. They're comparable, and I would say Ukraine is probably even smaller of a nation compared to Canada. The only reason Ukraine is putting up this much of a fight over a month now, we're in like what day 47, 48 or something like that of this war, is because there's international involvement. They've been giving them weapons, they've been giving them missiles and bombs and equipment, and they've been funneled who knows how many foreign troops or foreign legions, how many people have signed up and are actively helping them, assisting them. Okay, so after all of that, and Ukraine loses, again, assuming nothing changes, what Azov is just gonna disappear? They're not gonna exist anymore. Is that what they're trying to tell us? Don't worry about it. Look over here. I think that Azov Battalion is going to become the next ISIS. And I don't think that's a stretch. They are extremists. They're ideological extremists. They are nationalists to the extreme. And the excuses we keep hearing about Azov is, oh, don't worry, they're just nationalists. They're just super pro-Ukrainian. And I'm like, okay, so again, these are coming from leftist Democrats and the far left. For 10 years now, you've been screaming that, nationalism and patriotism is a problem, and we should, be very weary of that here in America. But it's okay over there for some reason. And you get mixed messages depending on who you're talking to. Okay? You get different messages depending on who you're talking to. I don't get it. So yes, I thank you for bringing that up, Fiery Waco. Some members of the Jewish community in Ukraine support and serve in the Azov Battalion. Okay, so this is what's really interesting. The excuses I'm hearing is, oh, well, the Azov Battalion are neo-Nazis. Sure. But they aren't anti-Semitic. They're just super nationalistic, super patriotic. I'm like, okay, so this is the thing that really bothers me about people is they clearly don't understand history and what any of this stuff means. If you have a group of people who claim to be neo-Nazis, right? That's their ideology. They have their symbols, all that stuff. All of the baggage of that symbology and the history of those organizations, you are taking onto yourself. oh, in 2022, we're not anti-Semitic anymore. Okay, sure. Um, but any Jew who believes that and thinks that there won't be consequences after this war, hell, even right now, there is a lot of accusations against Azov, specifically. To my knowledge, there isn't any real accusations of Ukrainian forces killing their own people, except for Azov Battalion, because they are extremists. And this is my concern: is for some reason the narrative here is so convoluted, so weird, so extreme, a complete 180 from what we've had here in America for the last decade. But now, because it's over there in Eastern Europe, Ukraine versus Russia, we can do a 180, and we're just supposed to completely ignore the last decade of narrative from these, establishment, primarily leftists. It does not make sense, and I keep asking people, make it make sense for me. And I have a couple of good friends, some of them international, and they try to explain things to me from what they know. Some of them have friends that are, they live in Ukraine, they visit Ukraine or have visited Ukraine many times, over the years. So they have I trust them more than I would trust somebody who doesn't have any connection at all. However, the information they were trying to give me was like, okay, you're talking to your friend over in Ukraine. I get that, but you're giving me numbers that like the mainstream legacy media are talking about. They're giving me data that I know for a fact is just fluffed up and false. It's propaganda, counter propaganda against Russia. I cannot reiterate this enough. Anyone who is trying to tell you that they know 100% what is happening in Ukraine right now is not being honest with you. Okay? I have seen videos from independent journalists who are there on the ground saying they don't know what's happening. And they're there in their bulletproof vests, level 4 armor, their ballistic helmets, and they're, seeing the ruins of cities, seeing dead bodies everywhere, interviewing people. They've been there for a month plus, and they said, I don't know. All I can tell you is that people are dying. And that's what I've said from day one, is you're going to see something spawn out of this that we've never seen before. The level of a fifth generational war, of information war, is going to be, the highest we've ever seen. Okay? We're at the peak of like social media influence at this point. And it's fascinating to me that we're only allowed to hear one side of the argument. I don't understand this. It's very much akin to what you would see down in World War One or two. We had propaganda. That was a thing. Hold on 1 second for me, please. My apologies. Okay, so where was I at? I was talking about height of social media influence and all this stuff. Listen, all I can tell you, like I've said from day one, is that tens of thousands of people have died or not, and are dying. There is heavy fighting in Ukraine. There are casualties on both sides, and you should be very careful on the information you're believing. And I mean that. Just because you trust a specific source or a specific personality or something, I highly suggest you try to fact check as much as you can, because if you don't speak Russian and Ukrainian, then there's only so much you're actually going to get out of that. It's just Do you trust that they're telling you the truth, or is it propaganda? Okay. Um, I'm trying to think of what else. What I saw something that was really interesting. Um, just completely lost. I'm trying to think what it was. It was that independent journalist. Oh, he was talking about something I completely the most obvious basic thing. The most obvious basic thing that I missed. Right? So in Ukraine where they're wearing the colored armbands, right? Like white is Russia, blue is Ukrainian and stuff like that, so they can identify the troops that they're shooting, right? And you know how the Russians have a Z painted on their tanks and vehicles, right? Spray painted or painted by hand. And I'm just really curious about that. I'm very curious about that at this point because this journalist was just like, you know, I think he was definitely very sympathetic to the Ukrainians. And when he brought this up, it's just like, whoa, like a little switch hit in my head. He said, they keep showing on the news that all of these Russian tanks and equipment are getting destroyed, and he's like they have the same Ukraine and Russia have the same equipment. They have a lot of this old Soviet equipment, and all they are using to distinguish between the two is they painted a Z on theirs. The Russians painted a Z on their equipment, and he didn't say it. But then I immediately was like, oh shit, it's so obvious. Well, how do you know the Ukrainians didn't get their shit kicked in? They just lost, a lot of their equipment. They just ran back after a battle, spray painted Z's on it real quick, and then took pictures and invited journalists to come in. Oh, look, we just blew up 3 Russian tanks and, all this other shit. And it's like, wow, that was so obvious and I missed that. So, even the video and photographic evidence you have to question. Now, if the Russians had like painted flags, they painted their full flags and emblems and shit on their tanks and equipment, I'd be like, that's going to be harder to fake quickly, right? You're going to have to get like special paint or, have somebody who's dedicated to just, do fakes. But if you're trying to tell me that the only distinguishing factor to say that this was a Russian tank you blew up was a spray painted white Z on it, that could be anything or anyone. This is very important. Good morning, Miss Red Badger. This is very important. And then we have the other problem coming out of Ukraine is this Zelensky. Something is off with Zelensky. And I don't want to be like mean, or I'm not trying to be disrespectful, try to say that, he is necessarily nefarious, but I have a lot of questions and I get bad vibes from him. And this is why I say that, because he's a handsome or attractive man, young, he's not ancient, right? He's very popular. He talks to the crowds, he talks to people. He's like super excellent at speaking. Okay, he was a former actor and comedian, and he did all this stuff. And that alone doesn't set off red flags, but I have mental notes. Okay, I know these things. So when he's touring around battlefields or mass graves and stuff, and he's frowning and all this stuff, understand he's an actor. Again, not saying he's lying. Let me be very clear about that. I'm not saying he's lying, but just keep that in the back of your head that he does have that experience. So keep that possibility open. Okay. Now, what does he keep asking when he goes on international TV or he puts out an address and then, BBC, CNN, ABC, all the foreign outlets, put his little 1 minute, 2 minute speeches up online. What is he asking? He's asking for aid. He's asking for money. He's asking for support. He's asking for weapons. He's asking for tanks. He's asking for aircraft, helicopters, and fighter jets. And I believe he's has been known to ask for troops. Like, just get involved and help us. Come save us. Okay. I just saw a clip this morning that said Zelensky was meeting with the Austrian prime minister or president. I don't know which one it is, probably prime minister. And he was very eager. Oh, thank you, thank you. And I invite all the leaders of the world, please come to Ukraine. Please come here. And you know what I immediately thought? It just popped in my head. I was just like, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. He wants all these world leaders to come visit a war zone. A war zone. Why does he want that to happen? Well, of course, he wants people to see it. He wants them to see for themselves, like, how bad everything's been and, the devastation and the impact on his people. Sure. But, Russia has been trying to attack their capital of Kiev for, like, a month and a half now, right? So they can just launch missiles and all this shit at any time. And you have the head of state from these other European nations coming to visit Zelensky. What do you think is going to happen if they're coming to visit and like, oh yeah, we're just, showing our support, and then a missile blows up this foreign head of state? The war just got expanded. Okay, now, Boris Johnson from the UK got bombed. He got missile striked while he was visiting Zelensky or whoever. And then now that country, automatically, by default, you're probably getting into this war. And if you are a NATO country, guess what? Now NATO, all of these dozens of nations are involved. And guess what that means? That's World War III. Something is not right with Zelensky, because you have to ask this most basic question. Why is this man asking for the world to get involved? He knows for a fact it's going to cause World War III. Why would he do that? At a certain point, a good leader also has to understand when they've lost, when they're not going to win, when it's not possible for them to win. I don't have the perspective of a small nation because I've never lived in a small nation. I live in one of the third largest nation on this planet. America has a population of 330 million. We're massive. I can't tell you what it's like to live into a medium-sized nation, a smaller nation of 50 million people, or however many. I think Ukraine might even have as little as, 20 million? I want to be accurate here. Ukraine population. Ukraine has 44 million. Okay, so yeah, that's like a medium-sized nation. It's akin or somewhat similar to like Canada or the UK or something like that. It's a geographically a pretty big nation, but its population is fairly small as far as America is concerned. It's a medium-sized nation. My point is, you're not going to win against Russia, which is arguably a superpower. The second most powerful nation, military power in the world, against your population. They outnumber you by population 3-1. Military power. Let's be real here. Russia's military power is second compared to America, and Ukraine's military power is probably down in the 20s. You rank it between 20 and 30 as most powerful in the world. There's no possible way they're going to win this unless you keep sending not only people. You'd have to send people, but also the equipment. Why is Zelensky dragging this out? Why is Zelensky not capitulating? Something's not right here. And I please do not misunderstand me. If America is invaded, we would never surrender. The nation would surrender or potentially surrender if we got our asses kicked somehow. But the people would never surrender. But if somehow the tables were turned, right, and we were a smaller nation and we're getting our ass kicked, you just, at a certain point, you say, we have to surrender and be occupied, or else they're gonna completely wipe us off the map. Okay, we're gonna lose millions of people. We don't want that. Your job as a leader is to protect your country the best you can, and lead your people to success and peace. But you also have to admit when you've lost. And for some reason, Zelensky keeps dragging this out and keeps dragging this out. And he has rejected, Zelensky has rejected Russia's peace demands during the peace talks. He's rejected their demands like 2 or 3 times. And basically, all they asked, the three, I think it was like the major talking points were, you can't join NATO, you can't join the European Union, and we leave those 2 regions. The one region is, I think, is it the Donbass? No, it was a different one. The one that just recently said they were trying to be autonomous. Let them be autonomous, and then we keep Crimea. That was really it. That was really it. Be neutral. Okay, that was Russia's demand, and they rejected it. There's also talk that the far left, or I'm sorry, the far right in Ukraine is a lot more powerful than being talked about. They're pretending, downplaying it, like, oh, they have no political power, and they're not. It's like, okay, but there have been reports that the far right have been giving basically death threats. It's an ultimatum. Zelensky, if you don't do what we say and you don't fight to the end, then we will kill you. We will send in our Azov Battalion or whoever to come kill you. Again, that's a rumor I've heard. I don't know how true that is. All right, let me get to some of these comments. That is a theory, Brandon. Brandon said, I wouldn't be surprised if Zelensky is killing his own people and blaming Russia. Other countries have done this. Why not Ukraine? And that's kind of what I've been alluding to in previous videos, is we don't know. They just come in and be like, oh, Russia just massacred this town. And I'm like, it's possible. It's possible. I just don't see how that benefits Russia. Okay. Now, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but Ukraine and Russia aren't bitter enemies. They haven't been traditionally. Especially Eastern Ukraine has been, fairly friendly. Big portions of Eastern Ukraine speak Russian because it was part of the Soviet Union and all that. There was a huge overlap. And then political borders got changed after the collapse of the Soviet Union and whatnot. So I don't understand, like, why would the Russians just start massacring Eastern Ukrainian towns that are basically their cousins? It's not making sense to me. It is, again, I say it's possible. I mean, I don't understand evil. I recognize evil. Like, if you're killing civilians, just massacring them, that's evil. But nobody is explaining this to me. And the explanation we get out of Ukraine, Zelensky's just like hyper emotional and hyperbolic, and he's just like, the Russians are evil and they're just killing us and it's genocide, and using the most bombastic and emotional language. And I'm like, that's not explaining why. Like, you have to give me evidence and why. Like, I see there's dead bodies. I have, unfortunately, I looked at that, and it's real. Those are real dead people. But why? Okay? And then, you had that issue. I've already forgot the town that just got massacred. What was that town that got massacred? Forgive me for not knowing it off the top of my head. I have brain fog today. I need some B12s. But that town that got massacred, and it was like huge on the news. Reports were that the Russians left on April 1st. Okay? And then Ukraine sent in some kind of special detachment or special unit or somebody, some special military force to clear the town and make sure, the Russians were gone. And then a couple days later, a day or 2 days later, then the official military came in to, oh no, all these dead bodies and everything. And that's where the conspiracy theory, they're saying that special detachment may have done that. So I don't know. Miss Red Badger says follow the money on Zelensky. Okay. Yeah, he did. He did a remote address from the Grammys, which is, again, it's so weird. It's so weird. Why Ukraine? Why is this war so popular? Why is everybody, all these leaders and elites and the wealthy and the political class, why is everyone so obsessed with Ukraine when there's dozens of other conflicts around the world that no one gives a crap about? Why is this one so special? And remember when Russia invaded? God, what region did they take the first time? No, they did. Yeah, when they took Crimea, that didn't even get anywhere near as media coverage as this has. Something is not right here, and you need to start thinking about this. Like, what's really happening here? Third-rate actor, comedian to multimillionaire. Yeah, well, of course. Ukraine is known as one of the most corrupt nations on the planet. Like, they are highly corrupt. Their government and establishment is very corrupt. He's the Will Smith of Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call him a third rate. Maybe he was not a really good actor or comedian, but Will Smith is absolutely top notch as far as his accolades. You may not. He obviously, most actors have bomb movies, but Will Smith is up there as far as like being one of the most successful actors. So yeah, a lot of questions on Zelensky for sure. Who bought a mansion in Florida? Did Zelensky buy a mansion in Florida? I did not hear that, but that's kind of weird. But yeah, Zelensky is highly popular, super popular. Brandon Hoskins says 40 million. All right, I'm way behind. Rumors of bloodlines to other world players, which, I mean, that doesn't necessarily bother me too much because, if you go far back, everyone's kind of related to everyone. But, when we had stuff like George Bush's, George Bush Jr., his grandfather was actively supporting the Nazis in World War II. So, I mean, stuff like that is like, okay, I'm not going to blame somebody for the sins of their father or grandfather or ancestors, but it's like one of those things. Add a little note on the side, and then you add it up with all the other things that are going on, and then we can, it may or may not be important. I'll say it that way, but I'm not going to condemn people specifically for what their family members are doing. This Red Badger says you found a vid from years ago where the Azov was mentioned and caught up in a huge dragnet of global CP out of Toronto. Hadn't heard of that, but it's something to look into for sure. It doesn't really surprise me. Fiery Wicked says they'd have been opposed for hundreds of years. I'm assuming Ukraine and Russia. Read up on Alexander Nevsky and how he collaborated with the Mongols against the Kievan Rus. Okay. There might have been a massacre in Mariupol, but no, it was the other one. The one I did a video on. It was what do you call it? I had age restricted it. Hold on, I'll just look at my history real quick. I don't know why I can't think of the name. Bucha. I'm sorry, Buka. the massacre in Bucha. Started from one case and ended a worldwide massive CP trafficking case. Yeah, I mean, again, I see this stuff and I don't disprove it or I don't disbelieve it. It's just like it's very possible that it's real. But you have to start asking these questions like how does the establishment rag on Nazis for 10 years, for a decade, and anything that is bad, anything that opposes their ideology, they label as a Nazi. You're a Nazi, or it's Nazism, it's fascism. The second we have actual Nazis and fascism, like on TV, like their main fighting force against Russia. In fact, one of the major leaders, we have it here in the article, the what do you call it, article, the Wikipedia article. Andriy Dyashenko, I'm butchering the name, I'm sure, spokesman for Azov. I believe it was that guy who said that these are the, and actually I could be wrong. I think it was somebody else that was in the Ukrainian government. He said that Azov is their best fighters. When they were talking about the Nazism, basically just saying like, yeah, we know, but they're our best fighters. So we have that in plain sight. Everyone knows about it. Well, anyone who's actually being honest, who looked this stuff up, they know about it anyway. The key players, like, the elites, the people in the media, all this stuff, of course they know who these people are. They're just like, oh, don't worry about it now. They're fighting Russia, so they get a pass. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. Okay? But that tells me how much they hate Russia. They hate Russia and Putin for a reason. Why do they hate Russia and Putin so much? I understand Putin is, he's a dictator. He's like the de facto king or emperor of Russia. Like, I get that. He does bad things. I get that. But comparatively speaking, if you're going to like do like a kill count or a like side by side comparison of Russia in the past 20 years versus America in the past 20 years, Russia is doing like nothing compared to what America has been doing in 20 years in the Middle East and in Africa. So somebody make it make sense for me, because to me it just sounds like Russia and Putin are trying to do their own thing and they have their own agenda, and it's just that's it. That's the reason why they're hated, because they're not falling in line with Europe and America. That's really it. Okay? Putin is no more evil than half of these other nations that are adversarial, okay? He's not a good guy. I still think he's evil, but I would argue that American, at least the foreign policy part, the top leadership, they're evil. American, the people anywhere around the world are mostly good. It's always the governments doing the evil things. So, let's pop this up. Fiery Waco says, speaking of massive CP and trafficking, how is only Epstein and Maxwell prosecuted but none of their customers? Of course. Of course. I don't know if that I actually talked about that case too much, with the Maxwell trial and all that, but probably didn't, because it's a federal case, and federal cases can't be televised, so there's kind of no point. And then there supposedly you had access by audio, like a live stream audio, but that fell through. That no one could listen to that. But yeah, I mean, obviously the purveyors of the pimps, essentially, the pimps and the madam of these child sex trafficking have to go down, right? They have to be punished and held to account. But their customers are equally as important to me. Like I would say that the purveyors probably deserve a harsher treatment than the customers. But the customers are not far behind, right? They still deserve, well, you know, my philosophy anyway is people who mess with kids do not, they have forfeited their right to be on this planet. And I think jail time is prison time is frankly uh, being a little too light-handed on it, and it's not doing enough. And we just keep going into the cycle, never-ending cycle of criminal activity because the consequences are so light. They're just like, oh, I'll get out of jail, get out of prison in like a decade, you know. I still got I got some life left in me. It's just like, dude, at a certain point, we have to start getting serious about a lot of this stuff. I don't know. Um, what else? I guess a quick update. It's I say update, but it could be a day, 2 days old at this point. But if you didn't hear, Russia is basically regrouping in the eastern part of Ukraine, near Russian border, and they're trying to regroup, and they're gonna, you know, start another push westward to take Kiev. And I very much think that they're going to be able to do it. And if not, here's the thing. The other thing too is people keep saying like, "Oh, Russia sucks and Russia's really bad at war and all this other." And I'm just like, since when are they like really bad? Because they have different tactics too. So like, you're trying to compare Russia's military tactics to like the top notch of the Western nations. Like American style is to send in a small force that are highly trained and specialized, who are like a katana, right? And the Russians send in a bunch of disposable people who are like hammers, and they're very two different fighting styles. Russia, basically, you send in conscripts, basically slave soldiers, and they get mowed down and killed. And it's like, okay, it's fine. I have like 100 times more than that. You know, I'm not really concerned with 10,000 dead troops. You know, I still have another 100,000, 150,000 that I'll just send in. It's like, it's not a big deal. Oh, we'll conscript more. Versus Western ideology is like, oh no, like every life is a huge tragedy, and yeah, we'll still keep sending them to die, but we value the troops' life more because we put a lot more money into training them and specializing them and stuff like that. All of that is part of the equation. So yeah, Russians are probably taking a lot of casualties, but that's their fighting style. And again, to equate it with Western, type of tactics doesn't. People just don't get it. They don't understand any of this stuff. They clearly don't know what they're talking about. And I always admit, that this is not like an area of expertise. This is me looking at it from a American perspective, but trying to be as objective as possible. I could look at this and be like, this is what I think is happening. This is what I know each side is capable of to a degree. If it's something I don't fully know or understand, like I accept that. Okay, I accept that. But to say that Russia is losing like so bad, it's like I don't believe that for a second. I think there's a lot more going on here, and I will. The next part I'll question is this. Okay, right. This is interesting, right? Fiery Waco, the whole tanks thing. Russia has the most amount of tanks in the world. It's something like 12,000 or something like that, right? They have more tanks than anyone else. My question would be is, are these the old tanks, the new tanks, medium age tanks? at what point do we say that maybe they're just throwing all their old shit in there to see if they could win with that, and then keeping all the good shit for something bigger or something later on? I don't know. Okay. Again, we're also getting reports that a lot of these generals are getting killed, and their troops, their convoys and columns are getting held up, and they're running out of gas. Their logistics is shit, and I'm like, okay, I'm not necessarily disbelieving that, but I do question, like, at a certain point, some of this has to be on purpose, because I have a very hard time believing that the second most powerful nation in the world, militarily speaking, at least on paper, right, is that bad at war. It just does not make sense to me. I have a lot of questions. I'm not saying that they are winning. Like, let me be very clear on that. Retreating doesn't mean you've lost. Retreating doesn't mean you've lost. Like, if you're regrouping, like legitimately regrouping, right? You sent in 10,000 people, 20,000 people, and the enemy, the battle didn't go the way you expected. Yeah, sometimes you fall back, and then you have more supplies and troops and equipment behind you back in your lines, and then you do a new offensive, bigger and better than the first time. It doesn't mean you're lost necessarily. Like, yeah, you maybe have lost the battle. You maybe have lost a couple of battles, a lot of battles, and you may appear to even be getting your ass kicked. But again, we're talking about a disposable army. I hate to call it like that, but obviously tanks and stuff are equipment. Like, the military hardware is expensive, and it's hard to replace because you have to manufacture it. So don't mistake me by saying like they're just throwing away everything. But I feel like there's a greater tactic or agenda here that we're missing. It is absolutely possible. Everyone, they could be 100% right in saying that, the Russian military is just complete trash now, and they're, a paper bear, or whatever. Like, it's just something that would blow away in the wind. It is absolutely possible. I just find that very hard to believe. You said they've lost new tanks too. Okay. So I don't know. I guess we will see how far this goes, and what's going to happen. Yeah, that's another point too that I think is interesting of note. Tank warfare, I mean, that was 20th century. Yeah, I mean, we can advance tanks to do more things or have better weapons and stuff these days, and have different functions and stuff with the new tech. We might strap some directed energy weapons or something on it, but I agree. I agree. They're a huge target. They're slow, and their armaments or not their armaments. Their armors, their protection is irrelevant at this point. We have stuff that can go through so much, and high enough caliber. Just even using the Warthog, like, there's nothing that's going to stop a Warthog. There are no tanks that are going to stop. There be survive a Warthog attack. So that's the other thing too. Is I would say is Americans have a weird perspective. Like, we always think that we're going to win. Um, and the last 20 years of conflict, of war that we've had is, I mean, it's a war, but let's be real here. We invaded tiny countries. Iraq was probably the biggest nation as far as the military fighting force that we fought in the last 20 years. And Iraq had a huge military. Thousands of tanks, jet fighter craft. They had missiles and SAMs, and we lost aircraft, fighter planes in the, I think it was the Gulf War. They got shot down. Like they were a serious fighting force, a real military. But we basically took Iraq in 2 weeks because it's significantly smaller in might than America was. Okay? If America had to do a full-fledged real war against a major power like China or Russia, it would not be over in like 2 weeks. Okay? And we would take heavy losses, and we would be shocked into realizing that, a lot of the equipment we're using doesn't work when you're fighting somebody who has the same shit, if not better shit, to some degree. Not to say that I think Russia doesn't have necessarily more advanced stuff than us, but in some areas, the hypersonic missiles, they were firing those in Ukraine, and our intelligence agencies, we had people who were, I think it was the Secretary of Defense, was being asked a question on some show or something publicly, and he was just like confused, like at the question about the hypersonic missiles, like he had no clue. It's like, yeah, Russia has better ones than us. Like he basically admitted it on TV, like live, which is, I mean, it's like, dude, maybe you shouldn't admit that on live TV for one, but it's kind of like they admitted to it. They admitted that Russia has some stuff that's better than us, which is problematic for any potential future conflict. Like we need to get it together. We're focusing on gender studies and trans people in the military instead of focusing on having the best equipment, the best trained individuals who know how to kill. Let's be very clear on that. The only reason why we have a military, the point of a military, is to kill. They need to be efficient at killing, if it comes down to that. So, if we're not focusing on that, God help us if something happens one day where we get into a real fight, and all we have is, diversity hires in the military who, wearing pink camouflage and high heels and, breast implants saying they're women and whatever. And that's cool now, right? That's cool. And, you're going out into war against, let's say, potentially Russia, who they don't allow stuff like that. And they actually have real men fighting in war who are rugged and are brutal, or China, who is similar. We're going to get our asses kicked. And that should scare you. That the United States military is more focused on, LGBTQ and all this other crap and diversity and all this stuff instead of worrying about, can we be an effective fighting force? Rome was invaded several times, and we kind of have to compare America to Rome. We're very similar. And it's like history is repeating itself in a sense, because we are making ourselves so weak now, and because we're so rich and powerful, we're basically like leaving the front gates open. Well, the back gate, if you catch my drift, pulling your skirt up and leaving the back gate open, and eventually someone's gonna be like, maybe I'll try it. Maybe we'll try it, and it'll hurt. It'll sting, and we'd be like, oh shit, they just invaded Seattle, or LA just got rocked. Maybe you don't really care about those regions because of the politics, but it's still America, right? What if they take out Alaska? Alaska gets rocked for the resources and stuff. It's gonna hurt, and then we're gonna wake up and be like, oh shit, maybe we should be focusing on what makes logical sense instead of trying to pander to the most extreme of the extreme. But okay, so that's, yeah, Fiery Waco. Yeah, of course. They can't win with the tactics they've been using, but can they adapt? Uh, I have no clue. My thing is, if you are a military and you're fighting in an environment that's not something you're good at, uh, draw the enemy to an environment that is a place where you're good at. But my thing, so it's kind of like, Well, why wouldn't Russia be good here? Because it's, mostly flat regions they're attacking. Um, you know, Forests and small towns, and some of them are major cities, and they're not even really sending troops into the urban environment. They're just shelling, using missile strikes. I don't get it either. It just seems like something is up here. Like something's not right. Maybe you have heavy corruption. Maybe there's heavy corruption in the Russian military where some of these dudes are taking cuts, or you may even have defectors, people who are intentionally sabotaging the Russian invasion. It could be morale is low. People, they don't want to be there. They are lied to. They said it was a training exercise, and oh shit, now we're in Ukraine, and this is real. This is live. There's a lot of different factors, but it just seems really strange to me. It seems really strange to me because, again, these are very different nations. Russia is not the same as America, but even when American troops got thrown into battle, thrown into Iraq, they were just like, "Why are we here?" But well, this is my job. I guess I'll do it. Mentality. A lot of people, a lot of troops were like that. I don't think we should be here. They didn't attack us, but these are my orders. I'm going to do the job and do the job well. Maybe it's not the same over there. Maybe they don't have that mentality. Maybe you're a conscript, which is a lot of them were. Maybe that's what happened. I didn't want to be here. I don't want to be in the military anyway. Now you're throwing me into a combat zone. Well, fuck. Your morale is low. People are tucking tail and deserting. People are running away, retreating, and not really wanting to fight. I don't know. All those things are a factor. But this is definitely a dynamic situation. I don't think that any amount of analysis is really going to cover all of this, everything that's happening. And things change rapidly. People get things wrong. So just again, understand that this is a weird fucking war. That's all I have to say. It's really weird. I have no clue what's going on because everyone's lying about everything. And like I said, all the videos and photos I see, all I know is that people are dying, which is horrific. And I just hope that it ends quickly. That's really it. I don't really have much else. I don't have much else for you. Just understand that Azov Battalion is sanctioned. They are not sanctioned. They are fully approved and supported by the Ukrainian government. They know that they are neo-Nazis. Well, they claim it's 10 to 20% of them are neo-Nazis. And it's perfectly all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about Azov Battalion and their Nazi symbols. Their Nazi symbology and all that. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We'll never have to worry about them. Now look at this. Azov soldiers in a military parade. I didn't even look at that. Do we have anything else? Yeah, what else? What else do you really need to know? Except that that's who these people are. And for some goddamn reason, they are allowed to exist in official capacity. So that's all I have for you today. I appreciate everybody for watching. I hope you got something out of this. I always appreciate the comments because that's what I like to have as a conversation. If you know something I don't, please correct me, and I will post your comment on here, or we'll talk about it and go from there. So thank you so much for watching, if indeed you still are, and I will see you all next time.